Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.
Good evening. It's Friday, February 11th. Thanks for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. California is nearing the next phase of the pandemic. Governor Gavin Newsom plans to unveil an endemic plan early next week. KPBS health reporter Matt Hoffman with what that could mean.
When you say that something is endemic, it's a recognition that that virus is not going to leave the human population. It'll be with us for years and years and years to come.
Dr. Robert Schooley is a professor of medicine at UC San Diego. He says endemic means that we've reached a sort of balance between COVID cases, deaths, and hospitalizations.
A lot of people now have experience with it, from either being infected or being vaccinated or both. As that happens, it makes it harder for the virus to come into a new population that have never seen the virus. So you see this kind of low-level smoldering most of the time, unless we let our guard down and let all the immunity decline.
The governor says his endemic plan is due to come out sometime next week.
And in that endemic plan, I think we'll be able to answer many questions that a lot of you have about what world are we living in? Where are we going with this virus?
Newsom hinted that the plan allows for counties and cities to set their own rules based on local realities.
It's great to be in the situation we're in. It doesn't mean we're never going to need to be masked again or we're never going to need a vaccination again. It just means that we are in a situation where we don't think we're going to have as dramatic a surge as we've had in some of the past ones.
Schooley says the governor's endemic plan will likely include fewer mandates and more personal choice. He says we know how the virus spreads and what works to protect ourselves, but we'll still see outbreaks persist in certain areas.
Periodically, when it finds a pocket of people who aren't immunized or who have low levels of immunity, you'll see a localized outbreak.
The governor says his endemic plan will include a blueprint for what could trigger a more aggressive pandemic response, like a more contagious variant. San Diego and California are seeing cases and hospitalizations fall, but that's not true of the entire country. Matt Hoffman, KPBS News.
A major development in the effort to protect the youngest Americans from COVID. Today, the FDA announced that a meeting to discuss vaccines for children under 5 has been postponed. Manny Gaither explains why and where this decision leaves parents.
It's the best protection against severe COVID-19, but right now vaccines are not approved for children ages 6 months through 4 years. The FDA was supposed to meet Tuesday to discuss the matter, but today the agency postponed that meeting, saying new data has recently emerged on Pfizer's emergency use authorization request for its vaccine for children in that age group. The company had originally provided information on a 2-dose series. Now Pfizer says it expects to have 3-dose data by early April.
The delays here reflect the fact that they decreased the dose for these younger kids in order to make sure that it was safe. Unfortunately, it looks like that decreased dose decreased the effectiveness of the vaccine a little bit, which is why they need the 3 shots instead of just 2.
Pfizer says it will extend its rolling submission as it continues to collect and submit more information. The company has not pulled its EUA application. In a statement, the heads of the FDA saying this will give the agency time to consider the additional data, allowing for a transparent public discussion as part of our usual scientific and regulatory processes for COVID-19 vaccines.
I know how incredibly frustrating and disappointing this is for parents of those under 5 kids. The process works, that these vaccines will not be approved until we are sure that they are both safe and effective.
The FDA says once the new data is in, it will be evaluated as quickly as possible. I'm Mandy Gaither reporting.
The White House is urging Americans to leave Ukraine within the next 24 to 48 hours. The U.S. National Security Advisor says that a Russian invasion of Ukraine could come within the week.
We obviously cannot predict the future. We don't know exactly what is going to happen. But the risk is now high enough, and the threat is now immediate enough, that this is what prudence demands.
Today, President Biden approved the deployment of 3,000 more U.S. troops to Poland. The soldiers are from the 82nd Airborne and will join about 1,700 members of the unit already there. The White House said it doesn't know if Russian President Vladimir Putin has made a decision to invade, but it said Putin has assembled all the elements to do so. A Marine reservist who is also the son of a former San Diego County GOP chairman allegedly tried to join a neo-Nazi group. As KPBS's Amita Sharma reports, the group has a violent past and a penchant for recruiting military people.
After a recent tip from the activated podcast activists, the Marines are investigating whether Viktor Kovarik, the son of ex-GOP chairman Tony Kovarik, applied to be in the Patriot Front. The group is one of the most powerful far-right hate groups in the U.S., and its members were part of the deadly Unite the Right rally in Charlottesville, Virginia in 2017.
They're the worst of the worst, but and there's no way that someone who is a Marine should be involved in this because it violates their oath to uphold the Constitution.
Brian Levin is with the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism. He says 20% of Patriot Front's members claim military ties, which may be due to the group's targeted recruitment tactics.
Flyers, stickers, propaganda, newspapers, things like that. They're less with the newspapers, more the flyers and the stickers. Going online to places where they know military people congregate.
The probe into Viktor Kovarik comes nearly 2 years after a 1990s video surfaced of the elder Kovarik appearing with animated Nazi imagery. Levin says the younger Kovarik's actions could be a case of
apple doesn't fall far from the tree, apparently. But the bottom line is, one of the things I think is so interesting, how the line between extremism and politics has collapsed.
Viktor Kovarik did not respond to a request for comment. Amita Sharma, KPBS News.
$100 million. That's what local lawmakers are hoping to get from the bipartisan infrastructure bill. It will go toward reducing pollution at the Port of San Diego and surrounding communities. KPBS reporter Kitty Alvarado breaks down the details.
Soon, $16 billion of the $1 trillion Infrastructure and Jobs Act will be up for grabs for ports and waterways across the country. That's why Congressmen Juan Vargas and Scott Peters stood in front of the docks at Pepper Park in National City to announce their plan to bring in as much of that money as they can to make improvements to the Port of San Diego.
The bipartisan infrastructure law is going to make an important impact right here in this district.
The surge of goods moving through our outdated infrastructure is causing a strain on our ports and slowing the global supply chain.
They plan to focus that money on reducing pollution that comes from the port and affects residents in Barrio Logan and National City, where most of the cancer and asthma-causing particulates come from diesel fuel, according to the county's Air Pollution Control District. Vargas says a barge system to transport goods is also being looked at as a way to take trucks out of local streets.
If you live in Barrio Logan, if you live here in National City, you really care because your health depends on this. In other words, we have to make these port terminals much cleaner. And that's what this money allows us to do.
Peter says one project they will seek funds for will be shore power systems that ships can plug into.
These plugs allow vessels, including cruise ships, to turn off their diesel generators. That's if you see ships sitting in port that aren't plugged in, they're running diesel motors all the time, day and night, to make sure that they have power. Shore power systems dramatically reduce pollution that hurts our portside communities.
The bipartisan infrastructure law is a game changer.
National City Mayor Alejandra Sotelo Solis says projects like these are important, and there are more in the works, including tracking where diesel trucks drive and emit harmful pollutants in order to make precise investments.
These dollars are great, but this is exactly where it goes and who it will impact.
The plan will help modernize and clean up the port that generates almost $10 billion and 1 out of every 30 jobs to the county's economy. They expect to get at least $100 million.
The port is a great financial feature for this county and this community. It produces a lot of money. We just want it to be fair in the sense of not creating so much harm, also in the sense of pollution.
Kitty Alvarado, KPBS News.
Local law enforcement and Mothers Against Drunk Driving are urging everyone partying this Super Bowl weekend not to drink and drive. According to the CHP, during the last 5 Super Bowl weekends, there were more than 2,000 crashes that ended with 40 deaths and more than 800 people injured in California. Bruce Maison, who lost his leg when he was hit by a drunk driver, now works to educate others.
At 2 drinks in, we're not able to assess the risk at the same as we are at 0 drinks in. And we go through our lives making spontaneous decisions with the assumption it's going to be okay. We just move through the world that way. We have to. And we carry that over to drinking and driving, and it just has to stop.
And Bruce is hoping people who hear his story take the higher road and have a plan in place to get back home safely. Meals on Wheels is well known for delivering food to seniors, and today the organization launched a new addition to their mobile services. KPBS North County reporter Tanya Thorne has more on what you could call a new pet project.
Meals on Wheels is known for delivering meals to seniors throughout San Diego County. In the last few years, volunteers began doing safety checks on seniors and delivering Animeals, meals for their pets. Brent Wakefield, the CEO of the organization, says now they are taking things to the next level.
Well, this is a new partnership with Helen Woodward. We're going deeper. So they're providing veterinary services for our clients who are getting Animeals delivered. And these are services that typically would be extremely difficult to afford for these seniors who are on a fixed income.
Fallbrook resident William Ralston took his dog Chemo for a free wellness visit to the Helen Woodward Animal Mobile Unit in San Marcos. Ralston lives on his own with Chemo and his cat. They all receive Meals on Wheels.
We're on a fixed income, and it allows us a little bit more freedom as far as groceries and things like that. They're wonderful enough to supply him with wet and or dry. He doesn't do dry very well. And they also are providing food for my cat.
Wakefield says Meals on Wheels saw a cognitive decline in many of their seniors during the pandemic, but the seniors that lived with a pet did much better.
So these animals are alive.
Well, the California Sierra has been seeing dramatic shifts in weather, including a record-setting dry spell. Now, as Max Darrow reports, a team of UC Berkeley scientists say they are seeing new signs of trouble.
On a sunny day in the Sierra, Andrew Schwartz and the team of scientists at UC Berkeley's Central Sierra Snow Lab spent the day working to get a better idea of how the snowpack is holding up.
We are starting to see those classic signs of melt, and those are things that we're hoping we wouldn't see until April or May.
Right now, the Sierra is in the midst of a record-setting dry spell.
We are now at 33 days without any type of precipitation, and that's the longest in a winter period that we've ever gone here, going all the way back to 1970. And so that is very concerning.
It's a stark contrast to December, where the lab measured 214 inches of snow, the snowiest December on record.
We are seeing drier than average periods, and then wetter than average periods than we've seen in the past.
It totally fits the pattern.
Alvar Escriva-Bo is a senior fellow with the Water Policy Center.
We are being less and less surprised from these climatic extremes, and this is really kind of sad, and it puts a lot of stress and challenges in the way that we manage our system.
Despite the great December, which helped replenish depleted reservoirs and build up the snowpack, the Sierra is still about 80 inches away from getting to an average snowpack for the season.
So at this point in time, we've received about 73% of what we would expect for an entire winter's worth of snow.
Schwartz says there really isn't an end in sight right now. He's hopeful long-range models that suggest a change could come in March prove to be true.
We're crossing our fingers as best we can, but nothing's guaranteed at this point.
You know, in terms of precipitation, what we are seeing is that we have the same amount on average, but the variability both within a year, but also across years, is changing a lot.
With variability the constant, these experts say conservation remains key.
These types of long dry periods are why we have to be conserving our water.
We've gotten rid of the winds, but the good news is we still get to keep the warmth if you're a fan of the warmth. Bad news if you're looking for a little relief. Yeah, we are going to keep temperatures that are well above normal for this time of year for the next couple of days, staying sunny and obviously dry, but there will be the potential for maybe a little bit of moisture, maybe a few showers, maybe some mountain snow showers into next week, so big changes still to come. Right now, though, you can see we are talking about heat advisories in place, and that's going to be our story here for the next few hours as we continue to deal with this warmth right through Sunday, actually. Notice 54 for the low, clear skies out there, pretty quiet conditions, 42 in Oceanside. Head towards Mount Laguna, we're holding on to the mid-40s. High pressure system that's keeping us so dry it hangs around for the weekend. It will shift farther south, which means, again, no return of those winds, but we will keep the dry, bright weather coming. And again, the warm numbers too. 80 for the high as we head into tomorrow. Chula Vista coming in at 78. And head to Borrego Springs, we're in the lower 80s. Same thing for Ramona. So it is going to be another warm one. And that warmth finally starts to retreat on Monday. As a high pressure system weakens a bit, we'll see onshore flow return, and that's going to start to taper some of our temperatures down in most locations. So for the coast, we are looking at the lower 80s for your Saturday, still mid to upper 70s on Sunday, which is well above average. We add some clouds Monday with the onshore flow, and then we start to see things change big time. Lower 60s for Tuesday and maybe even a shower. That's going to be our story as a new storm system works its way on through parts of the interior west. And for our inland communities, holding on to the 80s through Monday, then dropping to the lower 60s by Tuesday. So big change there. Mountain communities will actually see some rain and mountain snow showers possible on Tuesday with lower 40s. Until then, though, we're holding on to the mid and upper 50s. And our desert communities, sunshine staying bright through the weekend, still in the mid 80s by Monday, but back into the lower 70s for Tuesday. For KPBS News, I'm AccuWeather meteorologist Melissa Constancer.
Carlsbad native Shaun White made the final run of his Olympic career, and unfortunately he did not make it to the podium. He fell on his final run in the men's halfpipe final and finished fourth. At 35 years old, White said this would be his last time competing in the Olympics. And this week, the figure skating competition in Beijing produced some cultural victories along with medals. KPBS education reporter MG Perez says the Winter Olympics are also providing lessons for local skaters.
Figure skating practice starts early here at the Kroc Center ice rink. For almost 20 years, skaters have come here to play hockey, move as a couple, and learn the ups and downs of figure skating.
Performance-wise, it's always good to see Donovan because he deserves to be there.
Christopher Kaluza is a figure skating coach and teacher. He's also an international competitor and friend of Donovan Carrillo, the Mexican figure skater who made history this week at the Beijing Olympics. Kaluza says Carrillo is an inspiration for young skaters learning the sport with such a rich history.
What you see in skating is not only about jumps and spins. Back then, figure skating was about creating figures on the ice. That's why it's called figure skating. It's about drawing on the ice, and then you have to retrace that.
15-year-old Ella Canis is taking notes from the performance of this week's U.S. men's gold medal winner.
I think it's really inspiring, especially Nathan Chen. It's cool to see his performance and see his skating skills and things, and try and take things and apply it to your own skating.
This is not a traditional classroom, and it is a safe space to learn and make mistakes. We're told the Kroc rink has the best ice in town. It's so popular, skaters come from as far away as Los Angeles. Ice skating at any level costs money. Here at the Kroc Center, there is fundraising for $100,000 every year to give more young people opportunities for lessons and dream making.
Children who wouldn't be able to afford figure skating or soccer or any of the programs that we have here will actually be able to offset the costs of the program from those scholarships.
Terry Gilbreth started skating much later in life. She's also a mother who encourages the lessons learned on the ice for any child.
If they have a focus in their life, especially maybe even as a teenager, it's even more important. So, they learn discipline, they learn, to be proud of themselves.
That's a lesson just as valuable as any Olympic medal. MG Perez, KPBS News.
If you paid your taxes last year, but then you still got a notice saying that you owe money, you can ignore that. That's what the IRS is saying as it deals with a huge backlog of payments and tax returns. And as a result, some taxpayers are receiving automated notices saying they still have balances due. And in some situations, it's just because workers haven't processed the payment just yet. Now, if you received one and you really do owe money, you're not off the hook. You still have to pay that. The biggest day in advertising is just 48 hours away. SDSU's Miro Kopik tells us what to expect from this year's Super Bowl commercials in the Friday Business Report.
This year, advertisers are really going to be focusing on kind of humor and optimism, kind of an eye toward the future. 40% of all the advertisers are brand new, first time in the Super Bowl in their history. 3 cryptocurrency exchanges, including Crypto.com, DraftKings, Caesar Sportsbook, all about legalized betting. We're also going to see a lot of advertisers coming back after a big hiatus. Taco Bell's back for the first time in 5 years, BMW the first time in 7 years, and Lay's potato chips is going to be back for the first time in 14 years. NBC has been able to command a huge premium for these 30-second spots, ranging between $6.5 and $7 million per TV commercial. That's a 25% increase over last year's Super Bowl advertising. NBC is really going to drive the Super Bowl across all its platforms. So not just NBC, but the Peacock network on streaming, as well as Telemundo. Telemundo is going to be the first Spanish language broadcast network to broadcast the Super Bowl live.
San Diego Opera is back to in-person productions at the Civic Theater after experimenting with drive-in performances during the pandemic. KPBS arts reporter Beth Accomando goes behind the scenes.
If there's anything the pandemic has taught us, it's that we need to be flexible and just roll with whatever life hands us. In a way, that's what Mozart's Così fan tutte is all about, says director Tim Nelson.
Just the moment that your heart breaks for the first time and you realize that life is not going to be as simple or as plannable as you imagined it. I think it has a particular resonance coming out of this time where all of a sudden all of our lives were shattered in a way that we couldn't have imagined. And you realize how vulnerable you are and how unpredictable life is going to be.
You know, that's one of the best things about art is that it imitates life.
Reginald Smith Jr. sings the central role of Don Alfonso.
We all had our own individual plans and things are great and everything's going to work out. Now, I think even still in the middle of this pandemic, we all have a heightened understanding and awareness of ourselves, of space, of washing our hands, but also a great appreciation for relationships and connections and friendships.
For San Diego Opera's general director, David Bennett, returning to live performances needed to take into account not only artistic concerns, but practical ones as well.
It's a small opera. It has a cast of 6, has a relatively small chorus, and in our production, which is a new production, the chorus is off stage the entire time. And it has a not small, but not a large orchestra too. So all of that is part of why we chose it, right? But it's Mozart.
And Mozart serves up a story of transformation, which audiences can identify with, especially now. In Così fan tutte, 2 sets of lovers discover that the course of true love never does run smooth, prompting Nelson to take his design cue from Shakespeare's A Midsummer Night's Dream.
The metaphor that Shakespeare spins out in Dream, along with a lot of his plays, of going into the woods, of going into a dark, scary place where one goes through a transformative experience and comes out on the other side different than the way they went into it. So the way this production will look is actually very much like a production of Midsummer Night's Dream.
So an idyllic poppy field where we first meet the lovers transforms into a wooded forest where Don Alfonso, a confirmed bachelor, tries to prove that all women are fickle.
So every director has a decision to make as to who is the smartest character on the stage. Whose show is it? For me, it's Don Alfonso's show. It's a great joy to be doing it with Reggie and having someone who's able to own not only his role, but his show.
Smith does command the stage as he literally steps in to direct the action.
Because he is the puppet master, much like Iago in Othello, there's always this sort of, there's always a little whisper. And so he's always around. And so there's a sense of you always have to be on
Even when he's not singing, he's busy on the periphery of the stage, making sure things are going according to his plans. To add levity to some of the action on stage, Nelson has turned to vaudeville.
So one of the things that we've done conception-wise, particularly in the design, is to lean into stage magic, old-fashioned vaudeville stage magic, because we're using as a central metaphor of the piece being in a performance, being on stage.
But none of these antics detract from the music.
There's something about the music of Mozart that just speaks right to your heart.
What better way to spend this Valentine's weekend than with Mozart's playfully romantic opera? Which reminds us that in matters of both the heart and life, we need to be ready to roll with the punches. Beth Accomando, KPBS News.
And you can find tonight's stories on our website, kpbs.org. Thanks so much for joining us. I'm Maya Trabulsi. Good evening.
Major funding for KPBS Evening Edition has been made possible in part by Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, proud to support the mission of KPBS and privileged to serve San Diego clients. Anderson Plumbing, Heating and Air, helping homeowners maintain drain, heating, and cooling systems since 1978. And by the Conrad Prebys Foundation, Darlene Marcos Shiley, and by the following. By viewers like you. Thank you.